Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have back with us Russell Thompson with H&R Insurance and Financial Services, and we'll be talking about guaranteed income. Russell, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I think that there's certain words in life that people really resonate with, and I think that guarantee is one of those words because it's like, give me a guarantee on anything, whatever that it is. I want to hear about a guarantee, and when we hear guaranteed income, that's pretty powerful. So first, let's start off with just what's defining what guaranteed income actually is.
Yeah, a lot of people want guaranteed income. And when they say that I want guaranteed income, they don't fully understand what comes with that word guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So guaranteed income means it's contractually backed. So like Social Security, a pension, or some type of annuity with an income rider. Those are backed by a third party. So, Social Security is government backed. Pensions are plan backed. And then annuities are insurance company backed. And they are contractually obligated to pay you what they say they're going to pay you by contract. Now, if you're talking about what in my industry we call reliable income, that's different. That's not guaranteed. You can have a portfolio of aristocrat stocks that pay a dividend, that's never missed one. All these things that have been reliable and you can count on it, but they're not guaranteed. They're not backed by a third party.
Yeah.
You go wrong. It's kind of the rule that something can go wrong. Eventually it will go wrong. So the guaranteed part means someone is telling you, you give me this amount of money, and I'm going to give you as income this amount of money a year until you pass. So that there's no fluctuation in that income coming in. It's easier to determine a budget based off money for a fact that will be coming in. And again, that word guaranteed has to be backed by something.
I like the comparison between reliable and guaranteed, because I think if we look back, you hear some people talk about the market and go, oh, well, over the last 30 years, it's averaged X percent return. That's reliable. Well, but if you kind of zoom in, you're like month to month, quarter to quarter, it's like volatile and way high up and way high down. It doesn't feel very reliable. And to your point, like, oh, this company's always paid a dividend until they don't. So reliable isn't guaranteed, and it always happens a certain way until it doesn't.
Correct. It's if it's reliable, there's still a sequence risk. Yes, The market performed on average this much over the last 30 years. And then you dig into the 30 years and you get really granular. And you break it down year by year and then month by month. And on the reliable income, if it is down and you have to take your distributions because that's what you're relying on as income, and that's it, that will affect the overall performance of that reliable income. And if there's a big pullback in the market and you still have to take that same amount of money, it's really hard to recover from that, if you even will.
That's a really good point there, which we could dive in for about another hour and a half on that one concept. But when you start needing to take out X number of dollars of your retirement portfolio, and if most of it's in the market, and we're talking about volatility, you might have to take it out because you got to pay the bills. You might have to take it out because of the required minimum distributions that we have to take at a certain age. Well, it's all fine and good when the market's flying high and you just pull out a little piece and you never even feel it. And, the money you made in interest, is way more than even what you pulled out. Yay. That's good. But what about when the market starts going crazy and down? You are seeing your portfolio drop and you need to take money out. So now it's a double whammy. And then the thought hits you, well, I got to hope that it comes back enough to recoup that. Well, if it goes down 15%, you got to get way more than 15% to recoup. So now you feel a little bit tempted to maybe, well, let's take a little bit more risk and see if we can get that, recoup our losses. Well, then you're chasing, and now that adds fuel to the fire. So I think that's never a good strategy. So you bring up a great point there on that volatility. It's like you're chasing a never-ending solution.
Yes, and chasing it is what most people do.
Yeah.
When you have an emotion to your investments and you don't have the discipline to ignore it, and most people do not, and I've been guilty of it myself. So it's arbitrage, right? You're trying to get each year a little more than what you're taking out. And to your point, if the market's down 15, 20%, and you're taking 6% of your portfolio out as income to meet your needs, the math's easy. Now you're not down 20%, you're down 26%, and to recover 26% within the next year or 2 years while you're still taking more money out, that gets hard.
Yeah. Huge. Well, let's you mentioned a couple examples of, the contract-based guaranteed income like Social Security, like pension, like annuity. Well, pensions these days are few and far between, and maybe someone still has one out there. Social Security for now, I mean, I know that people have said, oh, what if Social Security goes away? I'm 58, and for the last 30 years, I've been hearing that same question. Well, what if Social Security goes, it's probably like back in the day when the banks were failing. It's like, this company or this bank is too big to fail. We're going to always prop up Social Security. Maybe there's some little tweaks and nuances there. But I think people are very familiar with those two. Talk a little bit about that other insurance-backed guaranteed income of an annuity, because I feel like sometimes people have some misconceptions there.
Yes, there's a lot of anchor bias toward annuities. So years ago, annuities were expensive. When you started withdrawing money out for income, there was no more growth inside that annuity and you could deplete it. So the contracts were just different. Mm-hmm. And people kind of had a bad taste left in their mouth. So, and even some of them, say you were in this annuity and you were taking income and you passed 2 years later, there was no death benefit. So that was years ago. Now they've gotten so much better to where when you get into each annuity and it's structured and there's a contract written saying, okay, you give me this amount of money, and they will actually do a spousal rider on it so that when the first person passes, the second person still gets that amount of income per year, which is great. Because, Social Security is not like that. But this is for both lives. And you give them $200,000, and in 5 years, you're going to start that stream of income. They will tell you the guaranteed amount that they will pay you for the rest of you and your spouse's life, or you if you're single. And there's a pool of money these life insurance companies have, and they're required and it's audited to pay these. So it's not just them. Their credit rating is important, but it's not just them saying they're going to do it. There is a system set in place to make sure they have the money to do it.
Yeah.
And this is really reliable. I've not heard of any. Again, I'm 55, and I've never heard of a life insurance company person that has gone under, that has filed bankruptcy. They get consumed by other life insurance companies who honor those obligations if that was to happen.
Because it's contractual.
Exactly. So that money has to be somewhere waiting for you to take it. It's your money. You can actually, then like you said, pensions are few and far between now. Outside of a government job or state job, you really don't hear of them anymore. because there's a lot of legacy costs in a pension, and businesses have learned that they obligate themselves to pay this pension. That is an expense to them that they are obligated to pay. They can't get out of. So they went more toward pushing 401ks. But you can move a portion of your 401k, it's called a 401k rollover, into an IRA, into an annuity. So you're moving some of your retirement into this income stream that you know will be there when you retire. So it's very important to sit down with a professional and keep an open mind, and don't listen to what your grandparents said about annuities or your parents, because that's based off their experience or what they heard of an experience of things that happened many years ago.
Yeah. And I think we could keep talking for a long time just on that one point alone, but I think that, back in the day, annuities had a black eye, but all those things mostly have been fixed. You got to just get the right one for you, and it's contractually obligated to pay you how it's set up. And that ties into that guaranteed income, because it's not that's a little bit different than guarantee, because we guarantee that annuity you're never going to lose. That's a wonderful guarantee. But when you turn on the income stream, now that helps you close that gap, if there is a gap between what you need in retirement and what Social Security or pension or whatever else you have. So that's a big thing for people to keep in mind, is that annuity guarantee, and it also brings a guaranteed income stream when you set it up that way.
Yes. And people just need to realize, because I have clients who are ultra wealthy and people who work their entire lives and save and do all the right things, but they don't sit down with a professional to make sure when they retire stress-free. They don't have to worry. And that's what this does. It gives you peace of mind, knowing that money will be coming into your bank account.
We talked about the word volatility, and then you just said peace of mind, and those two words don't go together, right? When you have your money in the market, and volatility rears its ugly head, you're watching the news or logging onto your computer or getting your quarterly statements, and your heart sinks in your stomach, because it's like, oh my goodness, volatility, and it was down. And that peace of mind is something that is so important. And I would venture to say, maybe you even have heard of this before, but there's probably studies out there where people, when they have their money buttoned up nicely and you have that peace of mind, you're actually going to live a longer life and a more peaceful life because of that, versus, I'm always worried that my money's going to be going down.
That's such a good point. There's tons of studies. I wish I had that data in front of me of how it is tied to life expectancy. So what happens when you retire, you pay more attention, because as you're working and gaining wealth and building your retirement, you just work and you put money back. They take it out of your check into a 401k or whatever avenue you have that you're putting into retirement. But studies do show, and they changed industry recommendations. So I remember years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, the financial professionals would tell people, look, you can take 5, 6% a year out of your investments. Well, when people retire, now they're watching. Because they have time, they're paying attention. Where before, when they're growing up, they're not paying attention. They just know it'll be there when they retire. So as that more people retire off investments rather than pensions, what has been found out and what's recommended now is 3% a year. And the reason being, people can't leave it alone, because now they're watching. And when they see this news on the market going down or whatever happens that causes volatility, and there's lots of things that causes market volatility. It's like, what can we do to stop the bleeding? So they'll call their advisor and say, I want to go to cash. I don't care. Go to cash. And they're down. And then they wait until the market's back up to get back in. They have a hard time just relying on the system and how it works. Yeah. So they make bad decisions. And that money that's recommended taken out percentage-wise is based off the emotion of retirees when their money's all in the market. because they're concerned. What happens if I live long? What happens if the market just goes away? Now, I hear that much. Worst case scenario,
Sure.
the market goes away. Hypothetically, you can say that. I'm not sure what the world would look like if that happened. But when you have this annuity and you peel off some of your profits and you put it into this guaranteed income, you don't worry about it. You don't watch it. You may base what vacation you're going to take off market volatility and timing, or when you buy a new car, or how often you go out to eat. But as far as your bills and your income, you don't worry about it. It's like you're working and getting paid. And that's what it is. You go to work, you work X amount of hours for X amount of dollars. And when you go to work, you are confident that business is going to give you that paycheck. Now you're retired and you're not working. You can't just work more hours, or you can't, or you don't, not maybe physically able to take another job. So all this cuts that out. And stress is just a huge killer. So if you remove that stress out of your life, you'll have a happier and healthier life.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I know you talk about income structure. Talk a little bit about what that looks like and why that is so important when you're talking about guaranteed income, because I'm sure at a certain age, you need to be saying, hey, we need to move a good percentage of your money out of the market into some of these guaranteed vehicles so that, we're structured the right way. But talk a little bit about income structures.
Yeah, so it's a great point. Now, most people it's not recommended you put all of your money into annuities for income because they are not liquid, and people need to realize that.
Yeah.
There's surrender periods, usually for income is anywhere from 7 to 10 years, meaning if you change your mind and you no longer want this income, you just want the cash, what comes with that guaranteed part is you are obligating that money to be there for a minimum of 7 to 10 years. So if you go, okay, I just want my cash, I think I can do better, there's a penalty for that. Now, that's the reason you don't want to put it all in there. You need liquid money. Mm-hmm. So structuring what becomes your reliable income is very important. So you have your guaranteed money, your Social Security, maybe a pension, and an annuity. And then you have the rest of your money. And you will have it in a portfolio of dividend paying stocks. There's tons of very savvy strategies to create income that are tied directly to the market. So you can go in and pull whatever sum you want or need from that. So you have your guaranteed money that is going to be there, allows you to play a little bit more with your reliable income as things change and needs change. So when you have both reliable, guaranteed, and then a portion of it still in growth, some type of a growth portfolio, so that you're getting more growth. And what comes with the more secure or reliable investments is the growth potential is not as high as something where, say, you're just in the S&P 500 and it grows great. So you have multiple strategies there for your retirement money that allows you to get more growth. And you have the guaranteed income, and then, again, your reliable income. And a lot of times the reliable income will pace with inflation.
Yeah. But
it won't outperform it. So that growth factor, hypothetically, should over time outperform inflation. So that's the reason it's so important to structure your money in retirement.
It really, again, just gets down to something I mentioned in our previous conversation. All of this makes sense, but I couldn't figure it out, do it, Google it, or AI summarize it because there's so many variables. So if someone is interested in learning a little bit more and seeing how some guaranteed income strategies could factor into their retirement, what's the best way they can reach out and connect with you, Russell?
Yeah, I would love to hear from everyone. It's just email me at russell at hr-ifs-frankSierra.com, or just go to our website at www.hr-ifs-frankSierra.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. Talking about guaranteed income is really, really important. I really appreciate your time, Russell.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.